Welcome back. Hopefully you're all back. I've had multiple GoPro issues, mostly I think setting issues on my part, but missed the last couple of builds. I'm finally back, at least for a week, so I should be able to get some good progress done. Update on the wing spar issue. It looks like Vans has shipped the new wing spar, so hopefully I will get that. I'm hoping this week. In other news, just a quick live update from the garage before I get on with priming the rest of these ribs. Suffered a little bit of a financial blow. My EcoBoost Mustang went EcoBoom, so unfortunately some of the money that was set aside for airplane stuff is now going to have to go buy a new engine for that. But yeah, that's life. What can you do? Thankfully I have the wings, so I got plenty to do for a while and hopefully recoup from that whole issue. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of the build. So those ones are already primed. Time to get on with this one. Alright, now we're on to the voiceover part. So there's a little bit of what you missed because of all the GoPro issues the other day, but all those ribs have been prepped, final size drilled on the ends, dimpled where they needed to be. All the edges have been prepped, scuffed them up, took them in the house, washed them off with some dish soap, let them rinse them really well, let them air dry, and now the final touch, I'm just going over them with some acetone to get off any remaining grease or fingerprints that might be on them. I probably took a lot more care with these than I have the other stuff I've primed. I kind of let the self-etching do its thing, but I want to make sure these stuck really well. So while that last set is drying, I'm taking the set that I painted from the night before, and I'm starting to attach them to the spar. And originally, when I was sorting these out and prepping them, I marked the part number, I marked which way was up, which side faced which way. Once I finally had it all mocked up the first time for final size drilling, when I took them out, I just put a number on each one of them, 1 through 14, starting with the inboard going to the outboard, on the top side of the flange. So it made it real easy just putting it back together. I didn't need any of those other markings. I just stuck them back in right where they went in the orientation they came out. And that part all worked out well because they all went back in exactly like they were supposed to, and the holes all lined up. So now those other ones outside are dry, and I'm pulling them off the rack and bringing them in and just putting them in their spots as well. A little bit of a better angle now. You can see the last of the ribs going in and getting clecoed to the front main spar. And now I'm grabbing the rear spar off the shelf. That was cleaned, primed, and painted a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a lot of video of a whole bunch of things that happened. Because like I said, I was experiencing GoPro difficulties. I thought I was recording, and then after a day of building, found out didn't record anything. So now I'm just going through and putting clecos in to hold the rear spar on. In a little bit I'm going to have to go reference those plans though and make sure that I am putting clecos in holes that I do not want to put rivets in, because there are still a whole bunch of them for things like the aileron gap fairing and stuff like that. Those don't get filled until later, and I really don't want to drill out any more rivets than I need to, so I'm taking extra care to make sure I don't do that. And then I decided to go ahead and throw some of those silver clecos in through the skin attachments on the top. Just figured every little bit to help make sure all the alignment was dead on before I rivet this in place was probably a good thing. I did the same thing on the rear spar on the bottom side. You just can't see it. So starting with that end rib, the rivets that hold that on are actually countersunk. They're the only ones that are, and that's because the aileron bracket is going to cover that up later on. So those ones, easy enough. Got the squeezer set up and got all 4 of those squeezed in. And then the plans make sure, or the directions make sure to let you know, do not put rivets in the forward attach point on that rib to the forward spar. That comes later on. Based on the way it looks, I'm assuming that's because there's going to be a nose rib that gets riveted on at the same time. Although that could be interesting. I'm not sure how you're going to get your hand in there to do that, but that's a future problem. So because that rear spar is a Z channel, I just had to change some settings around on how I had the squeezer set up. And now I am going through and making sure that I've got all of those clecos moved where they need to be, so that I'm, once again, not going to fill any holes I don't want to fill. The other thing you got to be careful of is there are at least, I think, 3 different lengths of rivets. Most of them are one size, but when you get into the spar doublers, you get into some much longer ones. So there, I think there's like 3 or 4 different lengths. So you always got to make sure you're checking that. And yeah, I screw that up later on the forward spar, but we'll get there. The rear spar, nice and easy. Can get to everything with the squeezer. And squeezing rivets is so much better and easier than having to use the rivet gun, especially with the setup I'm going to have to do later for the forward spar, but we'll get into that in just a few. But right now, I'm just enjoying how smooth that's all going. Those last ones are bunched together because that's the wing walk area. So that's the part that you're actually meant to step on the skin and be able to walk to get in and out of the cockpit. But it also means if you have big old fat hands, you can't really get down in there to get rivets into the holes. So that's why you see me using that set of needle nose pliers to stick the rivets in. And that is it for the rear spar. So I briefly moved it over to the wing stand, thinking that might be a real easy way to shoot all of those rivets that have to go into the forward spar. So I'm getting the rivet gun set up. It's got the big long offset, double offset cupped rivet set in it. And that's so I can get it right up against the flange without the rivet gun being right up against the flange. And you have to shoot these from the back side because they want the manufactured head to be on the rib flange, which means the shop head is going to be on the forward edge of the spar. So that means I got to get the rivet gun down in between all of those ribs. After doing the first couple, I decided really quickly that was a bad idea because I had no control over the rivet gun the way I thought I would. So I brought it back to the bench, and I struggled really bad with those first few. I messed up the heads of the rivets. I ended up, all told, I didn't have to drill any rivets out of the aft spar. I ended up drilling, I think, 5 out of the forward spar, and only because they were really mangled. There's still a couple in there with smileys that I'm inclined to leave alone just because I think I'll do more damage trying to drill them out. But drilling anything into that main spar is terrifying. So I finally got the technique down, which was, it basically came down to having to put 2 small pieces of masking tape on the end of the cup set there for every rivet that I did, because it would only last for about 1 rivet, maybe 2. Bucking it went easy. The bucking bar was more than manageable. I don't think I had any issues with any of the shop head sides. It was all just the rivet gun and keeping that thing in there. So I'll try to be more mindful of it when I get to the left wing so I don't struggle as much as I did on this right one. Yep. Shoot a rivet, change the tape. Shoot a rivet, change the tape. That was the theme. And you can see me, now that I'm past the bars on the spar, I get the idea that maybe I can use the squeezer now if I just get it set up right. But yeah, no amount of setup would let me get around the flange on that forward spar. So I had to abandon that idea and continue using the rivet gun, at least until I got to the last few ribs, and then there's a lightning hole in the spar web in the front that I'm able to slide the squeezer through. So the last 3 ribs for now, it'll eventually be 4 when I rivet the last one, but the last 3 ribs I was able to just reach in through the lightning hole with the 3-inch yoke and squeeze all of those rivets, which was a huge relief after having to do all of those other ones. Yeah, there you go. Now I'm getting the squeezer set up. Gonna go back over it again. I know the shop heads are all good. I just need to go back and look at every one of the other heads and make sure that I didn't miss any that I mangled and don't need to get rid of anymore. I hope not. So like I said, they're not fun to drill out. Under normal circumstances, they're not fun to drill out. They're even worse trying to get the drill in there and deal with them that way. So there you see me drilling one out. Thankfully, I had just barely set it, so it was easy to drill out. And the reason I'm drilling that out is because I put I think -7 length rivet in a hole that called for a 5, because now there's no extra flange material. You're just going through the spar web. It became evident real quick when I squeezed it. It was too long. So that one was easy to get rid of and change. And the rest of them just squeezed right in. So I think the next process is going to be hanging the top skins and getting those drilled, so that'll be fun. It's starting to look more and more like an airplane part. I'm also getting further and further away from the left wing, so it's kind of demoralizing knowing I got to do all this over again, but there you go. It's in the wing stand. Another one in the books. I'll see you guys on the next one.